The grand chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure that dwarfed most planets' moons. Inside, 12 species gathered around a circular table that glowed with soft blue light. These were the rulers of the Galactic Council, beings who had controlled this part of the universe for thousands of years. At the head of the table stood Vexthar, a creature made of living crystal that reflected light in strange patterns. His voice echoed through the chamber like wind through caves. "We must discuss the human problem," he said. The other council members shifted in their seats. Some had tentacles, others had wings, and a few looked almost like walking clouds of gas. But they all turned their attention to the hologram that appeared above the table. It showed a small blue planet called Earth. "Humanity has been in space for only 100 years, Vexthar continued.
Yet they have already colonized 15 worlds.
They have developed faster than light travel that rivals our own. They have created weapons that concern even our military advisors. An insect-like being clicked its mandibles. They are dangerous. We should eliminate them now." "No," Vexthar said firmly. "That would unite the other young species against us. We must be smarter. We must make them believe we are their friends while we take control of their civilization." Another council member, a being that looked like flowing water in a vaguely humanoid shape, spoke up. "The integration protocol?" "Yes," Vexthar replied. "We have used it successfully on 12 other species. It has never failed. We offer them our friendship, our technology, our guidance. We place our advisors in their governments. Slowly, over decades, they forget how to rule themselves. They become dependent on us, and when they realize what has happened, it is too late." The council members made various sounds of agreement. The integration protocol was their most successful tool. Species after species had fallen under their control without ever firing a shot. They thought they were being helped. They never knew they were being conquered. "I propose we begin immediately," Vexthar said. "Ambassador Talreen will go to Earth. He will establish trust with their leaders. Within 50 years, humanity will be another servant race." The vote was unanimous. Far below, on a space station orbiting the Council's home system, a young human man named Hyunwoo was packing his belongings. He had just received the greatest honor of his career. He was going to be Earth's first diplomat stationed at the Galactic Council headquarters. Hyunwoo was 32 years old, tall and lean with short black hair and eyes that were always watching, always thinking. He had spent 10 years training for this position, learning alien languages and customs. He believed deeply in cooperation between species. He thought the Council was humanity's best hope for a peaceful future. As he loaded his bags onto the transport shuttle, his communicator buzzed. It was a message from Earth's diplomatic corps. "Remember, Hyunwoo, you represent all of humanity now. Make us proud." He smiled and replied, "I will do my best." The shuttle took him to the Council embassy, a beautiful building that seemed to change colors depending on the angle you looked at it. Inside, he was greeted by several alien officials who welcomed him warmly. They gave him a luxurious apartment and access to the Council's public database. For the first few weeks, everything seemed perfect. Hyunwoo attended meetings, made friends with other diplomats, and learned more about the galaxy than he had ever dreamed possible. But he was a careful observer. He noticed small things that didn't quite make sense. One day, while researching trade agreements in the database, he found a reference to something called Shepherd Initiative Phase 7. When he tried to access more information, the file was locked. The system told him he didn't have clearance. That was strange. The Council had always said their database was completely transparent to all member species. Why would there be locked files? Hyunwoo didn't mention it to anyone. He made a note in his personal journal and kept working. Meanwhile, on Earth, a scientist named Ji-won was having her own strange experience. She worked at the Lunar Communications Array, a facility on the moon that handled all of humanity's long-range space transmissions. Ji-won was brilliant with quantum communications. She understood the mathematics behind faster-than-light signals better than almost anyone alive. She was small and energetic, always moving, always thinking. Her colleagues joked that her brain worked faster than their quantum processors. One night, while calibrating the array's receivers, she picked up something unusual. It was an encrypted transmission coming from Council space. That shouldn't exist. The Council had told humanity they used open, unencrypted channels for all communications. It was supposed to be a sign of trust. Ji-won recorded the transmission and spent 3 days trying to decrypt it. The encryption was incredibly sophisticated, far beyond anything she had seen before. But she loved a challenge. She wrote a custom algorithm that could analyze the patterns, and slowly, bit by bit, the data began to reveal itself. What she saw made her blood run cold. The transmission contained detailed maps of Earth's military installations. It had psychological profiles of human leaders. It had something called integration timeline with dates and objectives. She didn't understand everything she was reading, but she understood enough. The Council was gathering intelligence on humanity. They were planning something. And whatever it was, they were hiding it from Earth's government. Ji-won immediately sent an encrypted message to her supervisor, but she received a reply telling her not to worry. The Council probably has standard security protocols for all species, the message said. Don't create problems where none exist. But Ji-won knew what she had seen. She backed up all the data to a secure personal drive and continued monitoring Council transmissions. She would gather more evidence before she raised the alarm again. Back at the Council headquarters, Hyunwoo continued his investigation quietly. He started asking careful questions to other diplomats. Had they noticed any locked files? Did they ever encounter information they couldn't access? Most dismissed his concerns. But one diplomat, a woman named Soo-bin who worked in the Council's security division, seemed interested. She was human too, stationed here as part of a military exchange program. She had sharp eyes and a way of speaking that suggested she saw more than she let on. Meet me in the garden tomorrow, Soo-bin said quietly after one meeting. Not here. Too many listening devices. The next day they met among alien plants that glowed softly in the artificial light. Soo-bin looked around carefully before speaking. I've noticed things too, she said. The Council treats us like children. They smile and nod, but I've seen their private communications. They refer to humans as the latest subjects in some of their internal reports. Subjects? Hyunwoo felt a chill run down his spine. Not partners? Not partners, Soo-bin confirmed. I think they're planning something. I just don't know what yet. They agreed to investigate together carefully and quietly. They couldn't accuse the Council without proof. But they would find that proof. On Earth, Ambassador Talreen had arrived to great fanfare. He was a tall, elegant being with silver skin and forearms. He spoke perfect English and smiled constantly. Humanity's leaders welcomed him as a friend and mentor. Within weeks, Council advisors had been placed in Earth's government, military, and scientific institutions. They offered help with energy production, medicine, and space exploration. Everyone thought humanity was lucky to have such generous allies. No one suspected the trap that was slowly closing around them. No one except a diplomat who asked too many questions, a scientist who saw what she shouldn't have seen, and a security officer who didn't trust smiles that seemed too perfect. The integration protocol had begun, but this time humanity was watching. 3 months had passed since Ambassador Talreen arrived on Earth. To the public, everything looked wonderful. The Council advisors were helping humanity solve problems that had troubled them for decades. New power sources were being built. Diseases were being cured. Even the weather control systems were improving. But Hyunwoo saw what others missed. Every Council advisor was carefully positioned. One worked in Earth's military command. Another sat in on economic planning meetings. A third had access to all of humanity's scientific research. They weren't just helping. They were mapping everything. He had been collecting evidence for months now. Late at night, when the embassy was quiet, he would access files that most people never looked at. He found budget reports that didn't match official records. He found communications logs that had been deleted but left traces in the system. He found references to something called Governance Transition Phase 3. Soo-bin helped whenever she could. She had access to the Council's security systems, which gave her a view of things most people never saw. She noticed that Council ships were scanning human colonies without permission. She saw reports about population compliance factors and resistance probability assessments. They're studying us like laboratory animals, she told Hyunwoo during one of their secret meetings. Every human reaction, every decision our leaders make, they're recording it all. But why? Hyunwoo asked. If they wanted to invade, they have enough ships to do it. Why go through all this trouble? Soo-bin pulled up a file on her datapad. Because invasion creates martyrs. It unites the enemy. But if you make people think you're helping them while you take control, they never fight back. By the time they realize what happened, they're too dependent on you to resist. The file she showed him was a historical record. 12 other species had gone through the same process. Each one had welcomed the council as friends. Each one had accepted council advisors. And each one, within 50 to 70 years, had become completely controlled by the council. They still had their own governments, their own leaders, but every decision was really made by council advisors. Their cultures had been slowly erased. Their independence was just a memory. Hyunwoo felt sick. "We have to warn Earth." "With what proof?" Subin asked. "Everything we have is circumstantial. We need something definitive. We need the actual plan." That's when Hyunwoo remembered the locked file he had found months ago. Shepherd Initiative. That's what they call it. If we could access that file, we might have what we need. Subin thought for a moment. The Galactic Summit is in 3 weeks. Every council member will be there, including the security chiefs. The Central Archive will be less guarded than usual. It might be our only chance. Meanwhile, on Earth's moon, Jiwon had made progress with the encrypted transmissions. She had been recording them for months and had finally cracked enough of the encryption to understand what she was seeing. The transmissions were orders from the council to their advisors on Earth: continue Phase 2 integration, increase economic dependency by 15%. Identify and monitor potential resistance leaders. Ensure human military remains fragmented and unable to coordinate. Jiwon realized with horror that the council was executing a detailed plan to take over humanity. And they were already succeeding. She tried to contact Earth's government again, but her messages were being intercepted. Every time she sent a report about the council's activities, it would be marked as reviewed and dismissed. She realized that council advisors were probably reading her messages before Earth's leaders ever saw them. She needed to find someone she could trust, someone who would believe her. She thought about her old friend from the academy, Commander Dae-jung. He was now leading Earth's outer colony patrol fleet. He would be far enough from council influence to still think clearly. Jiwon sent him a message using an old military encryption code that the council wouldn't know about. Need to talk. Urgent. Use private channel only. Dae-jung was a career military officer, 40 years old, with gray starting to show in his hair. He commanded a fleet of 20 ships that patrolled the space between Earth's colonies. He was practical, calm, and didn't trust easily. When he received Jiwon's message, he remembered her from their academy days. She had been the smartest person in their class. If she said something was urgent, he believed her. They connected through a secure channel that bounced the signal through 3 different relay stations to avoid detection. "What's wrong?" Dae-jung asked. Jiwon told him everything. The encrypted transmissions, the plans for integration, the evidence that the council was slowly taking control of Earth's government. Dae-jung listened carefully. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "I've noticed strange things too," he finally said. "Council ships moving through our space without authorization. When I ask about it, I'm told it's part of a joint security program, but no one ever briefed me on any joint security program. They're positioning their forces," Jiwon said. "If humans resist, they'll be ready." "Have you contacted anyone in the government?" Dae-jung asked. "I tried. My messages get intercepted. Council advisors are everywhere now. They control the flow of information." Dae-jung made a decision. "I'll start documenting the council ship movements. You keep recording those transmissions. We'll need evidence if we're going to convince anyone." What neither of them knew was that Hyunwoo and Subin were planning the same thing halfway across the galaxy. It was Subin who connected the dots. During one of her routine security checks, she noticed an unusual communication pattern. Someone at the Lunar Communications Array was sending encrypted messages to the outer colonies. The encryption matched old Earth military codes. She traced the sender, Jiwon, and the receiver. Commander Dae-jung. Subin smiled. They weren't the only ones who had figured it out. She sent a carefully coded message to Jiwon. It looked like routine diplomatic correspondence, but embedded in the data was a secondary signal. "We know, we're planning. Galactic Summit in 2 weeks. We'll have proof soon." Jiwon received the message and nearly cried with relief. She wasn't alone. She immediately shared the message with Dae-jung. "Who sent this?" he asked. "I don't know," Jiwon admitted. "But they're on our side." On Earth, Ambassador Talreen was meeting with the United Earth Council. He was presenting a proposal for a joint defense initiative that would integrate human and council military forces. He spoke about efficiency and mutual protection. He made it sound like a wonderful opportunity. What he didn't mention was that the Joint Defense Initiative would put Council officers in command of human fleets. It would give the Council access to all of Earth's military codes and strategies. It would be the final step before complete control. The human leaders were debating the proposal. Some were enthusiastic, others were cautious. But none of them suspected the truth except for one, a representative named Minji, who governed one of the outer colonies. She had been reading reports from her colony's security team about unusual Council ship movements. She had heard rumors about mysterious transmissions. She didn't have proof of anything, but her instincts told her something was wrong. During a break in the meeting, she quietly sent a message to her security chief. Investigate Council activities in our sector. Be discreet. Report only to me. Back at the Council headquarters, Hyunwoo and Subin were finalizing their plan. The Galactic Summit would be the perfect opportunity. All the Council leaders would be distracted by ceremony and politics. Security would be spread thin. And the Central Archive, where all the Council's deepest secrets were stored, would be vulnerable. They needed a hacker, someone who could break into alien computer systems. Subin knew someone, a young specialist named Young Ho, who had been recruited by the Council's cybersecurity division to test their systems. Young Ho was 28, thin and pale from spending too much time indoors. He could make computers do things that seemed like magic. He had a neural interface implant that let him connect directly to computer networks. When Subin approached him, Young Ho was immediately interested. "I've always wondered what they're hiding in the Central Archive," he said. "Count me in." The pieces were coming together. 4 humans who had each discovered parts of the truth were now working together. Hyunwoo and Subin at the Council headquarters, Jiwon at the lunar array, Daejung with the military fleet. They didn't know it yet, but they were about to change everything. The Galactic Summit was 10 days away. Ambassador Tellarine sent a message to Council Prime Vexthar. Integration proceeding smoothly. Humans suspect nothing. Recommend advancing to Phase 4 ahead of schedule. Vexthar approved. The Council had been doing this for thousands of years. They never lost. They never failed, but they had never faced humans before. The Galactic Summit began with lights and music that human senses could barely comprehend. Ships from all 12 Council species filled the space around Nexus Citadel. Dignitaries in every imaginable form floated, walked, and flew through the grand halls. The Council wanted to show their power and unity. Hyunwoo attended the opening ceremony in his formal diplomatic uniform. He smiled and nodded at the other delegates while his heart pounded in his chest. In 6 hours, he would attempt something that could either save humanity or end his life. Subin moved through the crowds wearing her security uniform. No one paid attention to her. Security personnel were invisible at events like this. That's exactly what she was counting on. Young Ho was in a maintenance bay 3 levels below, preparing his equipment. His neural interface was already connected to a portable processor that could crack alien encryption. He had been studying Council computer systems for months. He thought he understood them well enough to get in and out without being detected. He thought wrong, but he wouldn't know that until later. The plan was simple on paper. During the diplomatic banquet, when all the Council members would be in the main hall, Subin would trigger a minor environmental system malfunction. Nothing dangerous, just enough to pull security away from the Central Archive. Hyunwoo and Young Ho would enter disguised as maintenance workers, access the archive, download the integration protocol files, and leave. Simple. Except they were breaking into the most secure facility in the galaxy. Jiwon monitored everything from her station on the moon. She had established a hidden communication link that bounced signals through 17 different relay points. As long as the team stayed in contact, she could guide them through the security systems remotely. Daejung positioned his fleet on the edge of human-controlled space. He told his commanders they were running a routine patrol exercise, but his ships were actually forming a defensive perimeter. If something went wrong, if the Council tried to move against Earth, he would be ready. The banquet began at sunset, which on a space station meant when the external lights were dimmed. Thousands of beings gathered in the Great Hall. Food and drink from 100 worlds were served. Ambassador Tellarine stood near the center, talking with human delegates, still playing the role of humanity's friend. Hyunwoo excused himself, saying he needed fresh air. No one questioned it. He met Young Ho in the maintenance bay. They both wore gray jumpsuits that maintenance workers used. Young-ho carried a toolkit that actually contained his hacking equipment. Subin watched them on her security monitor. She counted down. 3, 2, 1. She activated the program she had carefully written over the past week. On level 17, the atmospheric processors began cycling irregularly. Carbon dioxide levels started rising slowly, not enough to hurt anyone but enough to trigger alarms. Security teams rushed to level 17. The central archive, 3 levels up on level 20, was left with only automated defenses and 2 guards. Now, Subin whispered into her communicator. Hyunwoo and Young-ho took a service elevator to level 20. Hyunwoo's hands were sweating. Young-ho looked calm, but his eyes were focused in that way that meant he was already running scenarios in his head. The elevator opened. They walked down a corridor that curved slightly, following the station's rotation. At the end was the archive entrance. 2 guards stood there, both from the same insect-like species that had suggested eliminating humanity months ago. "Environmental check," Hyunwoo said, holding up a fake work order Subin had created. The guards checked their systems. The work order appeared valid. They stepped aside. The first barrier was down. Inside the archive, rows of crystalline data storage units hummed with energy. Each crystal contained more information than Earth's entire internet. Somewhere in this room was the complete integration protocol. Young-ho plugged his neural interface into an access port. His eyes glazed over as his mind entered the computer network. From the outside, it looked like he was standing still. Inside the network, he was moving through layers of security at incredible speed. Ji-won watched the data flow from her station on the moon. "You're in the outer directory," she said quietly. "Look for anything labeled Shepherd Initiative or Integration." Young-ho's consciousness moved through the files like swimming through an ocean. Everything was cataloged, but in council languages and organizational systems that made no human sense. He had to translate on the fly while avoiding detection programs. He found it, a massive file cluster marked with symbols that translated roughly to Subjugation Project, Species 847, Human. "Got it," Young-ho whispered. "Downloading now." The file was enormous. It contained detailed plans spanning 50 years, psychological manipulation tactics, economic control strategies, military contingency plans, historical records of 12 other species that had been successfully integrated, and most damning internal communications where council members openly discussed humanity as a threat to be neutralized. The download would take 4 minutes. It felt like 4 hours. Hyunwoo stood watch at the door. He could hear the guards outside talking in their clicking language. Everything was still going according to plan. On the moon, Ji-won watched the download progress. 70%, 80%. She was already preparing the broadcast protocol. The moment they had the complete file, she would send it everywhere. Every human government, every news network, every military base, everyone would know the truth at the same time. 90%. Young-ho smiled. They were going to make it. That's when the alarm screamed. Young-ho had been careful, but the council's security AI was more sophisticated than he had calculated. It detected an unusual access pattern. Not the download itself, but the way Young-ho's mind moved through the system. It didn't move like any known species. Red lights flooded the archive. The door sealed automatically. Outside, the guards' communicators erupted with alert signals. "We're trapped," Hyunwoo said. "Downloads at 95%, Young-ho replied, his voice strained. "I need 30 more seconds. We don't have 30 seconds. The guards were trying to override the door locks. In the main hall, security teams were running toward their position. Subin's diversion had been discovered. Young-ho kept the download running while simultaneously trying to hide their tracks. His neural interface was getting hot. His nose started bleeding. "Got it." Young-ho pulled his interface cable out. The file was complete. Ji-won sending now. Hyunwoo activated his communicator's emergency broadcast mode. It would burn out the device but would send the data in a single powerful burst. The file shot out into space, racing toward the moon at light speed. Ji-won received it. Without hesitation, she activated the protocol she had prepared. The file split into 1,000 pieces. Each piece was sent to a different location. Government servers, military networks, news organizations, academic institutions. private citizens. Within seconds, the integration protocol was spreading across human space like a virus. Encryption couldn't stop it because she was sending it openly. Censorship couldn't contain it because it was going everywhere simultaneously. Back on the station, the archive door exploded inward. Council security forces poured in, weapons drawn. Hyunwoo and Young-ho raised their hands. Ambassador Talreen arrived moments later, his silver face twisted with rage. "What have you done?" "We told everyone the truth," Hyunwoo said calmly. Talreen grabbed a datapad from one of his guards. His expression changed from rage to horror as he saw what was happening. Every human communication network was lit up with the integration protocol. People were reading it. They were understanding it. They were realizing what the council had planned for them. "You fools," Talreen whispered. "We could have given you peace. We could have elevated you. Instead, you've chosen war." "We didn't choose war," Hyunwoo replied. "You chose it when you tried to enslave us." On Earth, the news spread like fire. The president of the United Earth government called an emergency session. Commander Dae-jung received orders to return to Earth immediately with his fleet. Governor Minji watched the data with tears in her eyes, vindicated that her suspicions had been correct. And everywhere, on every human world, people read the Council's plans. They saw the contempt in the Council's private communications. They learned about the 12 other species that had been conquered. They understood that humanity had been seconds away from the same fate. The reaction wasn't panic. It was rage. At the Council headquarters, Vexthar called an emergency session. The 12 species argued furiously. Some wanted to apologize and negotiate. Others demanded immediate military action. Vexthar's voice cut through the chaos. "The integration protocol is finished, they know. The other young species will know soon. Our entire system of control is exposed." He paused, his crystalline form reflecting the room's angry lights. "There's only one option left. Protocol Omega. Protocol Omega, total military subjugation. We will not let this species destroy thousands of years of galactic order," Vexthar declared. "The Council fleet will move to Earth. Humanity will submit or be destroyed." Hyunwoo and Young-ho, held in a detention cell, heard the announcement over the station's speakers. "I'm sorry," Young-ho said. "We just started a war." "No," Hyunwoo replied. "We prevented a surrender. At least now humanity will fight with their eyes open." The Council expected panic when they declared war. They expected humanity to fracture, with different governments blaming each other. They expected pleas for mercy. Instead, Earth went silent for exactly 6 hours. Then the response came. Every nation, every colony, every faction that had been arguing with each other for decades. They all said the same thing. No, the United Earth government was formed in a single day. Emergency powers were granted. Resources were pooled. The old arguments about territory and politics were forgotten. There was only one question that mattered now. Would humanity survive? Dae-jung found himself promoted from commander to fleet admiral. He stood on the bridge of Earth's largest warship, looking at the tactical display. 3,000 council ships were moving toward human space. Humanity had 400 ships total, and most of them were designed for patrol work, not war. "We can't win," his tactical officer said quietly. "Then we make sure they remember us," Dae-jung replied. But he was already thinking. The council had superior technology, but their tactics were old. They fought the same way they had fought for thousands of years. Formal fleet formations, textbook maneuvers. They treated war like a chess match. Humanity had different teachers. Humanity had learned war from each other. Ambush, deception, desperation. Nothing was off limits when survival was at stake. "Get me Ji-won," Dae-jung ordered. On the moon, Ji-won was working 20-hour days. She had become the center of humanity's scientific response. Every researcher, every engineer, every mad inventor with a crazy idea, they all reported to her now. "We can't match their weapons," she told her team, "so we don't try. We go around them. We go under them. We hit them in ways they don't expect." Young-ho, who had been released when Earth evacuated its diplomatic staff, was working with her now. His neural interface made him perfect for the project they were developing. A quantum virus that could infiltrate council computer systems. "Their ships are networked," Young-ho explained. "If we can get the virus into one ship, it spreads to the entire fleet. We can't destroy their shields directly, but we can make their own shields turn off. We can make their weapons target each other. It was a weapon that had never existed before. The Council had never needed to defend against it because no one had ever thought of it. The first battle came at Kepler Colony, a mining outpost on the edge of human space. The Council sent 100 ships expecting easy victory. Daejung sent 5 ships to meet them. The Council Admiral laughed when he saw the numbers on his screen. 5 against 100. Humanity was even more foolish than he thought. The 5 human ships opened fire and immediately ran away. The Council ships pursued exactly as planned. They flew into an asteroid field that the miners had spent 2 weeks preparing. Every asteroid was now a mine. Every piece of debris was a bomb. The asteroids themselves had been hollowed out and filled with missiles. The asteroid field exploded. Council ships, expecting a simple pursuit, suddenly found themselves taking fire from every direction. Their shields were strong, but they hadn't expected this level of preparation. Then the civilian freighters hit them. Cargo ships loaded with explosives piloted by people who knew they weren't coming back. They rammed into Council vessels, detonating on impact. The Council called it barbaric. Humanity called it necessary. The battle lasted 4 hours. The Council won, but they lost 43 ships doing it. They had expected to lose maybe 3. What kind of species weaponizes cargo ships? The Council Admiral asked in his report. The answer was simple: a species fighting for survival. More battles followed. Each one humanity lost, but each one the Council paid a higher price than they expected. Drone swarms that overwhelmed targeting systems, suicide attacks that ignored all rules of warfare, ambushes in places that should have been safe. Governor Minji organized resistance on the colonies that the Council occupied. She discovered something the Council hadn't considered. When you try to occupy a human population, you're not just fighting soldiers. You're fighting everyone. Children planted surveillance devices in Council command posts. Elderly citizens sabotaged equipment. Teachers coordinated underground communication networks. Every human became a resistance fighter. The Council had experience occupying conquered species, but those species had accepted defeat. They tried to make peace with their new rulers. Humans didn't make peace. They made the occupation so costly and dangerous that Council soldiers were terrified to leave their bases. On Earth, General Jae Sun was preparing the planetary defense. He was a Marine Corps commander, 55 years old with scars from a dozen combat operations. He believed in fighting smart, but when the time came, he also believed in fighting dirty. They'll try to land troops, he told his commanders. When they do, we let them. Then we bury them. He turned Earth's major cities into fortresses. Every building was booby-trapped. Every street had firing positions. The sewers were filled with explosives. If the Council wanted Earth, they would have to take it 1 bloody meter at a time. 6 months into the war, Young Ho's virus was ready. The problem was getting it into the Council network. Their ships were heavily firewalled. A direct attack wouldn't work. We need to be invited in, Young Ho said. Subin, who had escaped from the Council station and made her way back to human space, had an idea. Let them capture a ship. A ship with the virus hidden in its systems. It was incredibly risky. They would be sacrificing a ship and its crew. But they were running out of time. The Council was slowly grinding humanity down through sheer numbers. A volunteer crew took a frigate into a battle they knew they couldn't win. They fought just hard enough to look real, then let themselves be captured. The Council was happy to have human prisoners and human technology to study. They never suspected that the ship's computer core was infected. The virus activated 3 days later, during a major fleet operation. Suddenly, Council ships lost their shields. Weapon systems went offline. Some ships even fired on each other. The chaos lasted only 10 minutes before the Council's tech teams isolated and purged the virus. But in those 10 minutes, humanity destroyed 200 Council ships. The balance of power hadn't shifted, but it proved something. The Council could be hurt. They could be surprised. They weren't invincible. Daejung decided it was time for the ultimate gamble. He would take the entire human fleet and attack Nexus Prime, the Council's capital. It was military suicide. Even with the Council fleet scattered across the galaxy, the capital's defenses could destroy the human fleet twice over. But he had studied human military history. Sometimes you had to risk everything to change the game. Sometimes the impossible attack was the only one that worked. because no one believed you would try. That we're going to lose most of our ships, he told his commanders. I know, said the commander of the carrier group. We might all die. Daejung continued. Probably, agreed the commander of the destroyer squadron. Then let's make it count, Daejung said. The human fleet gathered in secret, using a moon to hide their emissions. 300 ships, everything humanity had left. They would attack Nexus Prime while most of the Council fleet was away attacking human colonies. Jiwon provided updated virus packages. Young Ho integrated them into every ship's weapons. Subin supplied intelligence on Nexus Prime's defenses. Minji sent a message from her occupied colony. Give them hell. Hyunwoo, still a prisoner on Nexus Station, heard rumors of a massive human fleet movement. He smiled in his cell. He didn't know the plan, but he knew his people. They were coming. The Council didn't believe the reports at first. Attacking the capital? With their entire fleet? It was insane. It was suicide. That's exactly what humanity was counting on. The Council's certainty that humans would never try something so crazy. Daejung's fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Nexus system. Alarms screamed across the Council capital. Council ships rushed to form defensive lines. All ships, Daejung broadcast. Remember, we're not here to survive. We're here to win. The human fleet accelerated toward Nexus Prime at maximum speed. Missiles launched. Energy weapons fired. And on every human ship, crews whispered prayers or curses or simply held tight to whatever they believed in. The Council had spent thousands of years being the galaxy's superpower. They were about to learn that fighting a species with nothing left to lose was very different from controlling species who had already given up. The battle for Nexus Prime began. Space filled with fire and fury, and humanity, outnumbered and outgunned, charged forward anyway. Because that's what humans did. When told they couldn't win, they fought harder. When told they should surrender, they attacked. When told they were beaten, they refused to believe it. The Council had wanted to rule humanity. They never understood that ruling humanity was impossible. You could kill humans. You could try to destroy them, but you couldn't make them kneel. That lesson was about to be learned in blood and fire. The Battle of Nexus Prime was the most violent event in galactic history. The Council's orbital defenses opened fire on the approaching human fleet. Energy beams that could vaporize mountains cut through space. Missile swarms so thick they looked like clouds launched from defense platforms. The first wave of human ships died in seconds. Cruisers exploded. Destroyers were sliced in half. Fighters simply vanished in bursts of light. But the second wave kept coming, and the third, and the fourth. Daejung watched his tactical display as ship after ship disappeared from the screen. Each one was a crew he knew, people he had trained with, friends he had served with for years. But he couldn't think about that now. He could grieve later if he survived. Release the drones, he ordered. Thousands of autonomous drones launched from the remaining human ships. They were cheap, fast, and expendable. The Council's targeting system struggled to prioritize. Should they shoot the dangerous warships or the swarm of drones? While they decided, human missiles got through. Young Ho activated his virus from the flagship. This version was more aggressive, more destructive. It spread through the Council's defense network like fire through dry grass. Shields flickered. Weapons lost targeting lock. Communication systems crashed. The chaos lasted only 8 minutes, before Council technicians started purging infected systems. But 8 minutes was enough. Human ships broke through the orbital defenses and entered attack range of the station. Daejung didn't try fancy tactics. He ordered every ship to fire everything they had at the Council's command center. The station's shields held, but they were weakening. On Earth, General Jae-sun was fighting his own battle. Council troops had landed in force trying to take the capital city. They expected resistance. What they got was warfare unlike anything in their experience. The Council soldiers were well-trained and disciplined. They advanced in perfect formation, using cover effectively, calling in air support when needed. By every military manual in the galaxy, they should have won easily, but humans didn't fight by manuals. Buildings collapsed on advancing troops. Streets exploded from underground charges. Snipers fired from positions that should have been impossible to reach. And when Council soldiers thought they had secured an area, civilians would attack them with improvised weapons. "They're not soldiers," one council commander reported in frustration. "They're everyone. The entire population is fighting us." General Jason coordinated the defense from an underground bunker. He watched the battle through thousands of camera feeds. Every time the council took a position, he would collapse the buildings around them. Every time they tried to establish a base, civilians would sabotage their equipment. "Make them afraid of every shadow," he told his commanders. "Make them regret landing on our planet." Back at Nexus Prime, the battle was reaching its peak. Daejung's fleet was down to 150 ships, but they had breached the station's shields. Marines were boarding. The boarding teams were led by assault specialists who had trained for this moment. They knew most of them would die. They boarded anyway. Subin was with one of the boarding teams. She knew the station's layout better than anyone. She guided her team through corridors that the council defenders didn't know existed. They fought their way toward the command center where Vexthar was coordinating the defense. Hyunwoo heard explosions getting closer to his cell. He smiled. The rescue he hadn't dared hope for was actually happening. The cell door exploded inward. A Marine in combat armor stood there. "Sir, we're getting you out." "Where's Vexthar?" Hyunwoo asked. "Command center 3 levels up." "Then that's where I'm going." Meanwhile, Jiwon was executing the final phase of the cyber attack. With the council's defenses weakened, she pushed an upgraded virus into their entire network. This one didn't just disable systems. It broadcast everything, every secret, every hidden file, every piece of evidence about the 12 species the council had conquered. Across the galaxy, other young species saw the truth. They realized the council had been planning to subjugate them too. The careful order the council had maintained for thousands of years began to crack. On Nexus Prime, Subin's team reached the command center. Council guards fought desperately to protect their leaders. The battle was brutal. Marines and council soldiers fought hand-to-hand in corridors never meant for combat. Vexthar watched his orderly galaxy collapse around him. The defenses were failing, the fleet was in chaos. Worst of all, his carefully constructed system of control was exposed to everyone. "How?" he asked no one in particular. "How did they do this?" Ambassador Talreen, also in the command center, answered quietly. "Because we underestimated them. We saw them as primitive and emotional. We never considered that those qualities might be strengths." The door to the command center exploded. Subin entered first, weapon ready. Behind her came Hyunwoo, now armed with a rifle taken from a fallen council guard. "It's over," Hyunwoo said. "Over?" Vexthar's crystalline form flashed with colors that suggested rage. "We still have fleets across the galaxy. We still have—" "You have nothing," Hyunwoo interrupted. "Your fleets are scattered. Your secrets are exposed. The species you controlled are rising up, and your capital is burning." It was true. Fires raged through multiple sections of the station. Council ships outside were retreating or surrendering. The ordered, peaceful galaxy the council had maintained was gone. "We could have given you peace," Vexthar said, his voice almost sad. "We could have prevented so much chaos." "You would have given us slavery," Hyunwoo replied. "Peace isn't worth living on our knees." A transmission came through. It was Cairo, one of the council members who had secretly opposed the integration protocol. "Vexithar, I'm removing you from command. The council is surrendering." "No." Vexithar lunged forward. Subin fired. The energy bolt shattered his crystalline body into fragments. There was silence for a moment. Then Cairo's voice came through again. "This is Council Member Kiro. I'm ordering all council forces to cease fire. We're offering terms." Daejung received the transmission on his flagship. His ship was heavily damaged. Of the 300 ships he had brought, only 78 were still operational. But they had done the impossible. They had won. On Earth, council troops started receiving the ceasefire orders. General Jason didn't trust it at first, but slowly, the council soldiers began lowering their weapons and surrendering. The war was over. 9 months of fighting. Billions dead, colonies destroyed, Earth scarred, but humanity was still free. The Treaty of New Beginning was signed 1 month later aboard a neutral station. Cairo represented the Council, though it wasn't really the Council anymore. Too much had changed. The old power structure was broken. "We propose complete equality," Cairo said. "No more integration. No more subjugation. Every species has full autonomy." Hyun-woo, now Earth's Secretary of Galactic Affairs, nodded. "And the species you already conquered? They will be freed. We'll help them rebuild. It's the least we can do." The treaty was complex, but the core was simple. The old council was dissolved. A new galactic assembly would form, with every species having equal representation. The council's military would be dismantled. War criminals from both sides would face justice. It wasn't perfect. Many humans wanted harsher terms. Many council species resented losing their power. But it was peace. Daijong retired after the treaty was signed. He had lost too many friends and seen too much death. He moved to a quiet colony and tried to forget the faces of the crews who died under his command. Minji became Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Assembly. She worked to build genuine cooperation between species. It was harder than fighting the war had been. Trust was difficult when everyone remembered the violence. Young-ho led Earth's technological development. He knew the peace was fragile. He made sure humanity would never again be vulnerable to a surprise attack. General Jae-soon oversaw the rebuilding of human military forces, not for conquest but for defense. The galaxy knew now that humanity could fight. Better to keep them as friends. Subin dedicated her life to justice. She helped prosecute council leaders who had committed war crimes. But she also pushed for prosecution of humans who had gone too far in the fighting. Justice had to be equal or it wasn't justice at all. Ji-won returned to scientific research, but she never stopped monitoring galactic communications. Once you've seen how easily trust can be betrayed, you never stop watching. 5 years after the war, Hyun-woo gave a speech at the Galactic Assembly. Representatives from 43 species attended. Some had been freed from council control. Others had been neutral. All of them were trying to build something new. "We fought because we had no choice," Hyun-woo said. "But we need to make sure this never happens again. Not to humans. Not to any species. The right to be free isn't just for the strong, it's for everyone." The assembly voted on new laws, real protections, real oversight. It would take generations to build genuine trust. But they were trying. That evening, Hyun-woo met Subin at a memorial on Earth. Millions of names were carved into black stone. Humans who died defending freedom. They stood in silence for a long time. "Do you think it was worth it?" Subin asked quietly. Hyun-woo thought about all the death, all the destruction, all the lives changed forever. Then he looked up at the stars. Humanity's ships flew freely there now.